If you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, God, for bringing us here safely tonight. Please give us the guidance and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our community. In this we pray. Amen. Amen.
We've done pretty well.
Please turn me off this time. What I do? No, I'm the pledge. I'm kidding. May we have a roll call, please?
Present.
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 Present. At this time, we have a item from closed session to report. This time I'll turn it over to our city attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members, we want to report out that in our closed session, the council voted to unanimously terminate the contracting for city engineering services.
Okay, thank you. Item number 5, these are ceremonial items. This is a proclamation for Latino Behavioral Week in Stanislaus County Department of Mental Health. I have a proclamation here, and we have Sandy Lucas here to accept it. So at this time, let me announce a proclamation of the Mayor of the City of Newman. Whereas the Latino population represents a significant percentage of California's population, and whereas the Latino population continues to increase at a rapid rate, and whereas Latinos suffer from mental illness and/or alcohol and other drugs in the same proportion as the general population, and whereas Latinos historically underutilize early intervention and preventative public behavioral health services, and whereas underutilization of early intervention and preventative public behavioral health services leads to overuse of high-cost services financed by the taxpayer, and whereas underutilization of behavioral health care results in unnecessary and suffering by Latino families, and whereas the state of California has declared the third week of September of each year as Latino Behavioral Health Week, so now therefore I, Charles Marquez, on behalf of the Newman City Council, do hereby proclaim the third week in September of 2000 as Latino Behavioral Health Week. This time I'd like to call Sandy Lucas up so I could present this to her. Okay, item number 6, these are communications from the staff. Is there anything tonight? I don't think so. Nothing? Anything? Okay, seeing none. Item number 7, these are items from the public. These are non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Are there any non-agenda items tonight? Okay, seeing none. Item number 7, this is on public agenda items. Items from the public. Any member of the audience desiring to address the Council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the Mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the Council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the Mayor and the Council grants a longer period of time. Item number 8, these are public hearings. There are no public hearings tonight. Item 9, this is a consent calendar. Item 9A is approval of warrants. 9B is approval of minutes of August 22nd, 2000 and the special meeting of August 22nd, 2000. Regular meeting, and August 29th, 2000 special meeting. C is the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 2000-4, the California Model Floodplain Management Ordinance of June 1999 with modifications as provided by the State Department of Water Resources. Item D is adopt resolution number 2000 next to number, a resolution ordering removal of stop signs.
9D?
9D.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. And E is to review and approve final budget adjustments for fiscal 99-2000. Are there any questions on any of those items?
Yes.
Did anybody get 9B, the minutes for the last two meetings? I didn't get it.
No.
You don't get to have it either.
I don't think anybody got it.
Okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we pull item 9B until further notice that we get our material on that item? So at this time, I'll ask if there are any questions on A, C, D, or E. Oh, go ahead.
D, just for point of reference, as to where these stop signs are.
Pull it out.
Pull it out.
And just to clarify that the approval of warrants will exclude warrant number 19351 to PG&E.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You got to correct that the next time.
Okay, oh, you're still looking for the stop sign?
No.
Okay.
You want to do those and then I'll comment on that, or?
Sure. Let's take care of item A, with the exception of the warrant to PG&E, C, and E. Can we have some direction on that?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Let's take up item D.
Question, or you just want me to clarify that, Councilmember Reed?
Just, as to where they are, so in
Okay.
case someone's...
What it is, on Inyo, crossing the railroad tracks, that has always been a stop sign there in the past. We now have the automated crossing arms which regulate the traffic there, and therefore the stop signs are no longer necessary. And that's why the proposal is to remove those stop signs.
Make a motion, we approve item 9D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And the final one, if we could act separately on the warrant to PG&E, can we have some direction on that?
We've got that under item 10I.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll do that at the end.
10I. Oh, okay. We'll just... Okay. Actually, what we should do for future reference is just put it in the consent calendar and just add it as an additional item down at the bottom.
do that.
No, it's actually under regular business. Well, what we could
Okay,
do for the
we'll
future is
do
we'll
that.
put it on the consent calendar.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Item 10, this is regular business. Consider approval of payment to Skedco for the City of Newman's fair share as determined by the Skedco Board of Directors. And tonight we have Charlene Speck to make a presentation. Charlene?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, and residents of the City of Newman. My name is Charlene Speck. I'm the President and CEO of Skedco, the Stanislaus County Economic Development Corporation. I'm here to report to you a little bit of what Skedco accomplished last year and some of our main initiatives for next year, and to ask you to approve basically a 10% increase as a fair share towards the Skedco budget, which would be in the amount of $2,493. What I decided to do this fiscal year with the City Council is to share a little bit more detail about our budget so that you can understand the different resources that we have, as well as what those particular things fund. Skedco right now, we operate a $1.2 million budget. We have a staff of 13. We receive about 21% of our budget from the cities and the county, and you're included in that 21%. Our Small Business Development Center is a state and federal program that's funded by the state of California and the federal government, and that is about 26% of our budget and $325,000. That's the money that we use basically to provide services to small business from a consulting perspective. It's also the entity that provides workshops and seminars, and it's the entity that helps businesses obtain some types of financing. Our Small Business Development Center actually operates in 4 counties. It's in Mariposa, Merced, Stanislaus, and Tuolumne counties. We have a full-time person in Merced who we're getting to work real closely with Gustine, which I think is going to put a lot more presence in the City of Newman in terms of our Small Business Development Center. We receive about $17,500 from other public sources, and this year we anticipate receiving about $100,000 from the Employment Training Panel, which is a state program that'll pay us to market their particular program to employers who are looking to access resources to train their employees in specific types of occupations. We receive about 8% of our budget from the private sector. These are people who have an interest in economic development. Our one-stop partners, if you've seen some of the billboards and heard it, the Future Factory. The Future Factory is a Workforce Investment Act federal requirement to set up a one-stop. And the idea is that an employer and people looking for a job would have access to all the different entities that support that. SCEDCO is the entity that represents the business community once we have a final office, and I'll tell you about that in a second. Our Certified Development Corporation, which is our small business lending, generates about 28% of our budget in terms of income at this point, and then we get about $20,000 from miscellaneous income. This $1.2 million represents four main functions of our operation. I'll share that with you. But before I do, I'll ask you to be a little tolerable with SCEDCO over the next few months. Several years ago, when the county and the city of Modesto were putting together 10th Street Place, they asked us if we would consider moving into the building, and our first response was no. First of all, it was important for us to have a different identity. We didn't also want to be gobbled up with big county and big city Modesto. However, when they encouraged us to partner with Stanislaus County and the library to set up a business library and to basically create an environment that would encourage collaboration and that would be a resource for the business community as well as for the cities that meet on a regular basis, we took a second look at that. Right now, very honestly, I wish we never had, because when we went out to bid for our tenant improvements, they came in about $160,000 or $200,000 over budget. In the meantime, we had said that we'd be out of our suite at a certain time, so we're being kicked out of the SCEDCO spot September 30th. We're moving into the beautiful second floor of the old Crocker Bank building temporarily. Very temporarily. As short as we can get it. However, we thought it was irresponsible for us to spend beyond the budget. We will go back with a redesign of the project as well as give a longer period of time for the contractors to consider. So we're kind of like Waldo right now. It's going to be your magnifying glass, and people are going to say, where's SCEDCO? A little bit to share what we did a little bit last year. Small Business Development Center. Last year we had 861 inquiries to the Small Business Development Center. We provided technical assistance to 450 small business owners. We spent 2,661 consulting hours. We conducted 48 workshops and seminars with over 1,000 attendees, and we obtained financing for 31 businesses. Our Certified Development Corporation, which is our SBA 504 lending program, we approved last year approval for 23 loans. The debenture amount, the 40% that SCEDCO does, was about a capital investment of about $11.6 million. Total capital investment of those projects overall was about $31.7 million in land, building, and equipment, and that represented about 238 direct jobs. Right now, our portfolio, SCEDCO's entire portfolio, which is generating the income that I spoke to you about, is $30 million with an overall capital investment in small business lending in Stanislaus County of $80 million. Small business business development marketing. You know that SCEDCO is responsible for marketing Stanislaus County and the cities throughout California, throughout the United States, to try to attract new business and industry to locate to the area. Last year we placed about 210 different advertisements. We attended 9 industry-specific trade shows, participated in 4 networking association meetings. Those are the meetings basically where I'm given the opportunity to mingle and meet with the real estate professionals from the Fortune 1 to 500 companies across the country. After 10 years of that mingling, it's starting to pay off. They actually know who we are and where we're at. We did 6 visitation missions, and this is where we actually go into major cities and do face-to-face visitations with either site selection consultants, major realtors, or actual CEOs from companies. Last year we were in Indianapolis, Chicago, and a number of different cities. We responded last year to 1,120 leads. We did 2,270 mailings, and we did 12 Bay Area visitations. Those marketing efforts resulted, we prepared 62 site-specific proposals. We hosted 36 prospects. I need to tell you the difference between a prospect and a suspect. A suspect is someone that has inquired about Stanislaus County but has not actually visited. Once a company has visited Stanislaus County, we provide more detail. We consider them a prospect, and they become in a different pile. And let me just say they get a little more whining and dining and a lot more attention because we want to encourage that. Sometimes working with a prospect like that could take us up to 3 years. We identified 126 suspects that we hope will be prospects this year. We marketed to 1,120 interested companies and 1,445 site selection consultants. We located 5 new companies and 220 new jobs. We hope very soon to announce the results of a couple of other projects that we did this year. Our business retention program, we've always had the philosophy that it's important to protect the industry, but we think it's more important to take care of the industry that you have. We have a major commitment to our retention program. Right now, we have a retention relationship with 13 or 15 15 businesses in the city of Newman that we contact and have regular contact on a regular basis. But last year, we called on 400 existing Stanislaus County businesses. We assisted 25 businesses with regulatory and business climate issues. We made 125 referrals to public institutions and other service providers. That might be the Employment Development Department, the Department of Employment and Training, NJC, the university, anyone that can help those businesses with meeting their needs. We assisted with 20 local expansions, and we have identified 24 potential expansions that, if they come to fruition, will result in 456 new jobs over the next 18 months. Our retention program will take a little different twist this year. In light with the Tri-Valley experience, we're going to beef up our retention efforts and try to work with those businesses that have the potential to directly be impacted by Tri-Valley, the suppliers and some of them that might need to diversify their products and those types of things. So we'll put a special emphasis on the retention program. I also need to tell you, as mayor and council members, that our retention program is only good as some of the referrals that we receive. So anytime you speak to a business owner and you feel that we can be helpful to go into more detail about the resources that are available, we would encourage you to contact myself or Dellen, and we'd be happy to drive out to Newman and meet with those businesses. The whole goal of the retention program is to establish relationships, so when they have any needs or requirements, they feel comfortable contacting us to identify resources. Some of the other things that SCEDCO is very proud of accomplished last year is we're part of the Job Creation Plan and the Workforce Investment Board. If you're not involved or don't know what the Workforce Investment Board is, I'm encouraging the city managers to get you involved. I think it's important that you begin to seek out information about it. We continue our cluster analysis of agribusiness, health services, plastics manufacturing, and metal fabrication. Those are the areas that have the most potential for job growth, and we're trying to develop initiatives that will create a competitive environment for those industries so they have the potential to expand. Our Picture Perfect marketing campaign, which is the direct mail that we do, it's on our webpage. We have pieces that we send out on a regular basis, our community profiles, and it's part of our direct mail. But Picture Perfect is a campaign that features some real estate that's available throughout the county, as well as one photograph that represents each city in Stanislaus County. The Future Factory and the Academy is another one of our accomplishments. Spotlight Stanislaus. We have already scheduled Spotlight Stanislaus for this year. It will be October 26th. The evening before is a major CEO reception that's hosted by Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, the mayor of all the 9 cities, and every council person is encouraged to attend. This year, our keynote speaker for Spotlight Stanislaus, I forgot his name, but he's a gentleman who specializes in, Spotlight Stanislaus this year is about partnerships. It's about collaboration. So we're going to feature someone who will talk about, specifically about what high-tech businesses are expecting in terms of their real estate. High-tech businesses anymore, it's not tenant improvements to have fiber in buildings, and we try to relay to the communities the importance of taking the step of incorporating technology into a normal building construction for companies that are looking for that type. We'll talk about some of the collaborations that are going on. We'll feature West Sacramento and a developer that are going to tell us how they were able to obtain infrastructure to develop a major business park and industrial area in West Sacramento, because that is a challenge for all of us. This year, SCEDCO's goals are to advocate and support strategies that encourage local community development. We continue to work with your staff on a regular basis. Cleve is very supportive, and as is his support staff, in taking our suggestions. We would hope and know that you are focusing on providing infrastructure for the business and industrial parks that you do have. Certainly the steps you're taking in terms of providing financing for those. But you are doing a good job at preparing your community for us to bring prospects to you. We'll bring you prospects, but you have to be able to deliver, and to deliver there's some things that you should do. We attract new companies, encourage retention and expansion. It's also important for me to relay to you that we're committed to impartially serving all communities. Every city is just as important as any city in Stanislaus County is. We are serving as an advocate for the business community. We will promote a fair and regulatory environment. We'll be an advocate for that. We'll promote the efforts of the Workforce Investment Board. We'll encourage and participating in cooperating economic development efforts. Encourage all the chambers to work cooperatively to provide solutions to key economic development efforts. We have extended to your Chamber of Commerce an opportunity to have either the executive director or a designee attend every SCEDCO board meeting so that we can improve communication. We also hope that the chambers will be more aggressive at working with other chambers in this county to deal with issues specifically as they relate to economic development, whether it's transportation, infrastructure, workforce issues, those types of things. We will actively participate in the Stanislaus County Travel and Tourism Roundtable. We hope to play a role in the visioning process, and we'll also continue our relationship with the Interregional Partnership Council, which, as you know, is a group of San Joaquin and Stanislaus elected officials, as well as the 4 Bay Area counties, who are seriously talking about ways to provide tax incentives if employers locate here, as well as providing tax incentives for developers in the Bay Area who build affordable housing. And we also will continue to provide a voice for regional and statewide needs. Needless to say, SCEDCO has a very busy year, but we will tend to focus on those areas that I explained some of our things. We'll, one of the things that we are looking at right now, very seriously, is establishing a very strong presence in the Silicon Valley as in an office. We're looking at the feasibility of how we'd approach that, what it is we'd offer, the types of investments that we're going to have to make to do that. We have submitted formally to a proposal to PG&E that would be specifically for West Side communities. At the suggestion of the city manager and discussions that we had, we would do a special target marketing program specifically for smaller manufacturers that fit well into the resources that Newman has, and we have formally asked for that money, and we'll work obviously with the city of Patterson, the city of Newman, a little bit of Crow's Landing to accomplish that. And then offer certainly our services to you as you look to obtain your community development block grant for infrastructure and possible loan programs. I hope that you all see the value that what we're offering is worth the investment that we're asking of you tonight, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Charlene?
Charlene, I think I was talking to Kelly Bearden last month, and he mentioned about opening a small business development center here on the west side, I believe in Gustine or something like that.
Well, we've hired, like I said, we have a full-time person now who's working out in Merced County. I think what we're going to focus on initially is working with your libraries to actually host some events on a regular basis in the city of Newman. It's been our experience that workshops and seminars anymore, we just don't get the response from the business community that we'd like to get. So we're hoping that if we can make a big day, kind of a SCEDCO day in Newman, that we can do something that would include all of you, maybe include some type of special program. But we really want to enhance our presence in the smaller communities. But we really need you to help us and open the doors to some of your business owners. We are still from Modesto, and some just are not sure what our motives are. But I'm positive that if you can open a door for us, and we have the opportunity to meet, that we're going to enhance the services that we can provide to your business community and enhance the investments that you make in our organization. But we're going to look at that, Dave, and see how we can better improve our presence in the smaller communities.
You're talking about evening
Thank
meetings. Because that's the only time you're going to get them.
Well, that's those are things that we're all open to. We're hoping also that, the meetings with your chambers and those groups that are involved will enhance the communication between us, and ideas will spur from that so that we're not duplicating, we're actually enhancing each other's efforts and making what was maybe 2 events into one bigger, successful one. So I'm always open, and we are always open to suggestions on how to improve our presence in the smaller communities.
Charlene, I know that you and your staff have been over on several occasions, and it has been kind of a dismal, attendance at some of the workshops, and that's kind of frustrating. But if someone has an idea for a business they'd like to start, I've heard the word small business incubators. I'm not sure if that's the right term here or not, but they have an idea for a business. How can can they go to SCEDCO to get them started on, create a business plan, get funding?
Our Small Business Development Center can provide those services to any business who's looking to start a business. We're a little grueling, though. We're going to be very honest with them about some of the things in order to do that. We're going to talk about their business plan. Very honestly, sometimes a lot of people walk away from that idea when they realize how much hard work it is. But our job is to make sure that they understand that it is hard work, and taking that step is a huge step, especially when we might look for some financing for them. One of the other things that we're looking at this year is establishing a microloan program. We found Wells Fargo has offered us about $500,000 to do that. I just at this point don't have the money for the administration of that program, so we're looking at how we might do that. But that enhances small business people who want to borrow anywhere from $5,000 to maybe $25,000. We wouldn't go any further than that because it would then be competing with the bank or with existing revolving loan funds within particular cities. But a small business incubator, we've not been able to make an incubator work. And the way that works is you have one building that maybe can house 4 or 5 different businesses, and they share services. We found in our feasibility analysis of incubators that it only works if the real estate is donated. To operate it, you can do it, but to make the initial investment and make that pencil is very difficult. But we're not giving up on that concept, and we're constantly looking at ways to accomplish that.
Any other questions, Bob? Any questions? Okay. I just want to thank you for coming out tonight. We know you always do good work. And there is a request for the $2,493 for SCEDCO. Can we have some direction on that?
Well, I'd like to, Mr. Reed, David Reed, you're a representative from the council to SCEDCO, right?
Right.
What is your recommendation? I mean, you go to all the meetings.
Yeah, well, I don't think you'll find a better group of people that do what they do. And it's, like Charlene was saying, that they need help from people down here, too. The way I look at it, it leans toward Modesto and larger cities, naturally, because there's more places available and more companies would like to locate there. But I think they also look over here, and if we have something to offer, for instance, as we're doing our streets and everything in the industrial area will enhance, it'll look better. Everything will, in our new streetscape, that'll bring people in, and people have to really think this is a great place to live rather than in Modesto or whatever. So I think you do a fine job.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. I just want to remind you our phone number is 521-9333. I love email spec@scedco.org. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you again. So can we have some direction on this?
No, I
item?
move that we make approval of payment to SCEDCO for the City of Newman's fair share as determined by the SCEDCO Board of Directors.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you again, Charlene. Item number 10B, this is the approved certificate of cancellation for Williamson Act contract number 76-2227. Cleve?
Just quickly, Mr. Borchard was unable to make it for our meeting tonight. This is just a continuation of the action that has already been taken by council. This would be the final action that is necessary to permanently remove that property, which is within the Sherman Ranch project from Williamson Act. All of the conditions have been met by the developer, fee has been paid, etc. The notices have been done, the required notice period has expired, and we can now proceed with this.
Are there any questions for Cleve? Seeing none, can we have some direction?
I so move that we approve the certification of the Williamson Act cancellation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 10C, this is a request from Dave Tatro for facade improvement reimbursement. Margaret, I guess, or Cleve? I don't know
Margaret's
who's
gonna
going
handle
to get this one.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Recently, we received a request from Swan Construction asking to participate in the city's facade improvement program. The building that was improved was located at 1335 Main Street, and it's been recently repainted. The request was funding through a grant. The total cost of the work was $2,500, and this would compute to an eligible maximum amount of $1,050. Staff has reviewed the proposal and had determined that it did not fall within the parameters of the program. First of all, there was a question if repainting is a function of maintenance or if it actually did in fact improve the facade, which would enhance our commercial district, which is the intent of the program. And secondly, there was a concern that the application was submitted after the project had been completed. The input that staff has received from the Architecture Review Committee is that when funding is given out after the project is completed and the input taken from various committees guiding the project, it circumvents the purpose of the program, which is to have continuity in the downtown area and to approve it as part of a total plan. So staff at that point had determined that this request didn't fall in the parameters, but it has been requested that it be brought before council for reconsideration.
Are there any questions for Margaret?
Margaret, has, in this facade program, has there been any precedent for businesses receiving funds even though they completed the work first?
Yes, there has.
Okay.
Margaret, how have we notified the businesses of the details of the facade program?
We
do
have
they
mailed
know?
out mailers. It's been over a year ago that all mailers went out based on our business license listing, so went to each business owner. And staff has also contacted the chamber and made presentations before the chamber and the Rotary talking about the program itself.
And
The building department also has brochures.
and the steps are outlined in...
Yes. Yeah.
Only thing I have to say on this is there's a couple, or before did you have any questions, Tom?
No questions.
No. Bob?
Not at this time.
No. The only thing is, you know, we all know that we haven't gotten, since we started this program, we all know that we haven't gotten much of a response on this program. We've, gosh, as you say, we've met with I don't know how many service clubs. We've send out mailers. We've included it in I don't know how many letters and everything else. And, you know, for a while there, when, you know, remembering how that building used to look way back when and how it looks now, you know, as far as I'm concerned, little maintenance items are retouching up the stucco or, you know, redoing a little bit of the trim or this and that. But it's my understanding, and there's actually a receipt here that shows it, I mean, a complete exterior was done. And, you know, that's the entire facade. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see us go ahead and make payment on this. I think Mr. Tatro has you know, a repaint is, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to see a nice building get, you know, a different color or whatever else, but I would move that we approve this based on the fact that it was a complete re-facade or redoing of the facade.
And
Okay.
the color had been pre-approved before. When it was originally painted.
I feel that if he had gone before the Architectural Review Committee, it would have been approved anyway. And I feel we have somebody who volunteers to make his place look really nice in this community, and you know, I commend him for that part of it. And I agree with Charles that you know, I think we should pay it. You know,
I just, go ahead.
Just quickly, I want to reemphasize, and I requested that Margaret emphasize this in the, my main concern with it is I agree also that it is a maintenance item, not an improvement item. And, you know, people, in order to keep up not to improve the looks necessarily, but to make sure that, the building is in good condition, you paint all the time, and it's a maintenance item, especially when no colors were changed. It's the same thing.
But the entire thing was done though, Cleve, and,
Sure, but it's still, painting
right,
is a
right,
maintenance
I know.
item, so, but it is up to the council to
Right.
decide, so.
It seems as
That's
though
my-
part of our reason for creating this program originally was that some of the colors that were showing up downtown were, how do I put this diplomatically?
You can't.
Well, let's just,
Well, they were less than desirable.
right. And I think,
so
I think what
the
this
painting
does
was
is
part of it.
I think what this does is people will see that this building was redone again. Maybe people will start to inquire. I mean, we all know that this program, as far as participation, has been less than successful. And I think this is just a way, if we start seeing some buildings getting done, maybe other people start, getting some decent colors on their buildings.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we were walking downtown
Right,
tonight,
we were
and there's
just
some other
walking.
buildings that if we could get them to paint the thing,
Participate.
participate in it.
What a
that,
difference.
and maybe this will help when people see that,
Right.
we want to see this done.
Absolutely. Okay. So if we can have some direction on this item, there's a, go ahead.
I have one other thing. I agree with what Tom is saying, but what we're saying is that if you go ahead and paint your building and it's some neutral color or something that nobody's really going to scream about, that you can go ahead and do this without consulting the Architectural Review Committee, without consulting anyone.
Well,
and
one of
still
the
get
things that,
reimbursed for it.
one of the
So
things
I
that,
think that, just a minute, I think that we should probably go ahead with this one,
Mhm.
but re-emphasize that anything done
Right.
from this point on must
Right.
go through these
Right.
processes.
And the
I
other
agree with
thing,
you.
well, I agree with that, and the other thing is, and I know this came up at the council meeting before a few months back, we were having a heck of a time getting the Architectural Review Committee to meet. I mean, we were having a heck of a time getting a quorum, and then we had to make some changes to add some additional folks on there to make sure that we had a quorum. So perhaps that, could have played into it. I don't know if it did or not, but, we just also need to make sure that if we set a process in place, that we have the necessary people there to make sure that there's a quorum when people meet, because we certainly don't want to delay people that have projects to move forward.
In other words, in the future, Mr. Tatro, please follow the guidelines.
Okay. Anyway, having said that, can we have some direction on approving?
I have one question. Are we saying that a building that is run down in front and needs to be repainted could not qualify for the facade program?
No.
No, we're saying that they need to go through the
No,
architect.
I know that. I'm just saying the painting of the building, does that qualify under the facade?
Yeah,
program?
absolutely, because it's a facade, right.
That's the only question.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'd like to ask for direction on approving the request by Mr. Tatro.
I ask that we have approval for the request for the facade program funding for David Tatro's building.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Item 10D, this is a consider request from Dave Tatro to dedicate 3-acre park to city at Walnut Creek Subdivision and leave as a Walnut Orchard until such time as sufficient funds are available to develop park. Cleve?
As is stated in my report, Creek Bridge Homes out of Salinas has been speaking with Mr. Tatro concerning the purchase of that subdivision, Walnut Creek subdivision. Just a clarification of the agenda item, the 3 acres, the dedication of the 3 acres is not an issue here. That has been previously decided, and we won't discuss that again tonight, hopefully.
Right.
But the issue is that the number of homes in that subdivision and the number of park fees that would be dedicated or paid as a result of the building of those homes is not enough to reimburse for the land which is required and pay for the improvements to the park. So the question comes up, how do we develop the park? Staff has looked at this a little bit. One of the requests that has come in from the developer at this time is, why don't we'll put the improvements in around the park, dedicate the land, but we'll leave the walnut trees in there at this time. We looked at that, and it appears to be an option. However, have talked to some people who are in the walnut business and some of that, and there are some concerns as far as what happens to maintenance of a walnut orchard. Could it be maintained? Could it be leased to a farmer? The people that I talked to, they didn't know if there would be a farmer who would take on just 3 acres of walnut. Now, there may be someone out there, but their initial response was that they didn't know if someone would take that on. If you don't do it that way, there is maintenance required as far as whatever, spraying of the trees, and maintaining, keeping the weeds down between the trees, and et cetera, things like that. Staff has a concern about doing that. Obviously, my first proposal is to look at other funding that we have and possibly come up with a way that we can actually develop this park to the minimum level, or a level 1 park. We are short some funds. We have some funds in our park development fund. However, we do have a lump sum payment coming up for our Mariposa Park site that will eat up a portion of those also, which leaves us short of the needed money to actually develop this park. The other alternative, which the developer is not real comfortable with, is to enter into a reimbursement agreement and designate that as fees come in from other developments, that they would be paid towards, he would be reimbursed from those fees as they come in. The concern is, and I can understand this, is that, well, when is this other development going to happen, and when would these fees come in? Our current ordinance, or our current citywide services master plan, states that these agreements will be for 15 years, or can be up to 15 years, a reimbursement agreement. So those are the issues that we are looking at. Again, my position is that I have concerns about leaving the orchard in. However, there are some things to consider, that perhaps an orchard may look better than a barren piece of land that is going to have dust blowing and et cetera out in the area. My first priority, however, is to try and find a way to provide the park in that area, either through having the developer do it under a reimbursement agreement, or perhaps have the developer clear the land and dedicate it to the city, and then possibly through volunteer services and other things, being able to raise the money and provide the needed labor and et cetera to provide the park. With that, I'll open it up, allow the developers to speak, and then we can discuss it further and answer questions if need be. Great. Thank you, Cleve. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Dave Tatro, 1335 Main Street, Newman. Before I get into my presentation in response to staff on this issue, I'd like to thank the City Council for the previous action you've taken. And if at all possible, if you could take that check and make it out to Measury and donate it to them for the school, I would appreciate that.
All right.
Can you do that without coming through me with it? You can go direct to them. Tom, you can do it. Figure it out, Tom.
We'll talk.
You can figure it out. Make it work. All right. I don't know where to start. A couple of the mayor and councilwoman, pardon me, have been, since both of you have been on the city council, you have seen me on various occasions talking about this wonderful city park and my objection to even giving you the city park. On numerous occasions I've stood before you and indicated the same problem we're faced with today. There was not going to be enough funds from park fees to improve the city park. And with the development that's taking place in that section of the city, there's no foreseeable money in the future. Namely because the Stevens Ranchwood project to the west has a very substantial park requirement, and those fees are going to go into improving that park in lieu of paying park fees. The property immediately adjacent and to the south of this currently is not in the city. We have to go through annexation and tentative map hearings, and if and when that piece were to come into the city, that is the parcel that will probably be able to produce the improvements to the park. Currently,
The southeast piece.
yes, the Caton piece.
Right.
Property directly to the east is owned by, or it's controlled by George Souza, and there's no impending development there. Part of that is commercial, which fronts Highway 33. And the most recent development was exempt from park fees, which was the senior citizens project that's currently undergoing completion. So our request has to do with aesthetics more than looking at a 15-year reimbursement agreement. As most of you know, we've been struggling with my Stonegate project on fees that have been paid for 10 plus years, and with the market conditions that we were faced with. That being said, to impose a park improvement on us with no real reason in 5 years, if you will, to look at a reimbursement schedule would be erroneous on my part. I don't mind being philanthropic with the city of Newman, and have been, but I'm not in the investment loaning business to the city of Newman. Leaving the Walnut Orchard on there is the lesser of two evils as far as I'm concerned, because of the dust and various other problems, trash, etc., that's going to collect in the neighborhood. The Walnut Orchard, to be perfectly honest with you, we've been ranching that Walnut Orchard for 10 plus years since I've owned that piece of property. When I bought it, it was an 18-year-old walnut orchard. We did not irrigate this year. We are going to attempt to probably harvest some of the walnuts that are out there, but to be perfectly honest with you, less than a third of that orchard will produce any kind of crop. I doubt it'll cover my caretaker's costs, to be perfectly honest with you. So leaving the trees there does provide aesthetically a better position for the city until the money is available to take those orchard out and make the improvements. Again, I kind of feel like I've been repeating myself for over 9 years, but this is a problem that I have stressed at numerous occasions to the council that we'd be faced with, and here we are faced with it. So all I can do is hope that you're understandable and can understand the reasons for the Walnut Orchard remaining and approve that request. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dave? Okay, we'll bring it back to staff. Are there any questions for our staff? Only comment, well, go ahead, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
What would be the costs involved just to take the trees out and level and seed that park area? And we could keep it watered and keep it, at least to be a lawn area.
Put the irrigation in also then? We'd have to put the irrigation lines in.
I think, yeah, probably.
Yeah. Do you have any idea? I know our Public Works Director is sitting near the back over there, and if he might possibly be able to let us know. Actually, can you come up that way, the people at home, that way they can get some idea.
Because leaving these trees in there, they're 20-year-old trees, and I don't know, Dave, have they been irrigated like they should be all the time, or?
Yeah, up until this year.
Come on up.
So they're probably pretty well died out now.
In your packet, you have a breakdown, by the way, of what the cost would be. I believe it's
Yeah, I see
$151.
this.
That's the cost to remove the orchard, put irrigation in.
Dave, real quick before Ernie comes up here,
grading.
maintenance-wise on those 3 acres,
And grass, David.
what are we talking about as far, is it significant, the maintenance cost, Dave? Before Ernie gets up here real quick, maintenance-wise on those 3 acres, I know...
I don't think there's...
What are your costs right now?
Well, I share crop it, okay?
Oh.
He takes care of it, sprays it. Until this year, he did not spray it
Right.
this year because we knew we were going to be starting to do something.
But
Either I was going to sell it or build on it. In the past, the cost of run on that 17 acres is around $15,000. That's spraying, irrigating 3 or 4 times a year, harvesting, and pruning, that kind of stuff. But we didn't do any of that this year.
Right. Okay. Ernie, can you give us an idea on that other thing?
Okay, now you wanted an estimate on just the...
Knocking it down, putting irrigation lines in, sodding it.
When Lion Duckus did the Walnut Orchard that we had out on West Mariposa, I think that went for between $12,000 and $15,000 for them to come in and
To
grind
level
all
it.
those
Okay.
and remove all that. Of course, you're going to have to go in there and disc it up in land level, and I would say another $10,000 for that. And then for you to be able to go in and put in a good sprinkler system, of course, you would want it automatic with, you know, your latest, newest up-to-date sprinklers for good coverage, etc. I would say about between $30,000 and $40,000. So,
Okay, well,
65,000.
before you go any further, let's stop there. So we're looking at about 65 to 70 with the sod and everything
So
on 3 acres.
you're looking at about 5 years of maintenance if you leave the trees in, assuming you don't have to pull any trees in the meantime.
Possibly. Is it going to cost us $14,000 a year to?
Well, that's what Dave
What
was
would it-
saying. He'd
What would it
gone,
cost the city to maintain that? And we're not gonna go into the
We're not
oil
gonna-
business.
Right, we're not gonna sell them off or anything like that, and we're
But,
not
you know,
gonna.
to do the disking of the weeds and all that, and watering the trees.
to leave the trees and just do the disking and of the
take
weeds,
the trees out.
Spraying.
A lot less than 65,000.
Oh yeah, it would be. It would be a few $1,000s, I would imagine. You know, I know that when we have the contractors to come in and do the disking, like for that land next to F&A Dairy, they're
Right.
able to disc it for about $500.
Okay.
So, and if you go in there and say that you got to disc it once a month or so, you know, especially early in the springtime, well.
But you're still running a dust problem.
Oh yes, you definitely will have.
Well, you're gonna run into, well,
I don't, we're,
70,000, we're gonna have, or we're gonna leave it empty, which I know that what's gonna happen. I mean, if we have $70,000 right now in the budget that we could spend on this thing, then I would say let's look at that. But what's gonna happen is, you know, what always seems to happen is, yeah, we're gonna knock everything down, we're gonna require this, we're gonna have an empty lot here, or we're gonna have an empty 3 acres that's gonna have dust blowing all over the place as well,
Where do you
and
get
having weeds.
well, we
have an empty,
empty
sod it
10-acre parcel
I'm
over
just
here.
saying, I mean, that's all I'm
But this
saying.
will be surrounded by houses, though.
Right.
Well,
Well, we're an egg community. I mean,
That's what-
when I first moved here, I had to get a pool cleaning service because I had that much mud at the bottom of my pool.
yeah. And I
mean,
think, and that's the main thing. I mean, Tom makes a point. People know there's going to be dust out here. You know, there's ag out here. There's farm.
Yeah, but it can be eliminated now. When you're,
Well-
it's right in the middle of your housing area. Well, that's a little bit different. If it was off to the side somewhere, all right, that's one thing. But
Do we have the $70,000 to do that stuff?
Dave, you mentioned the need for irrigation and the need for spraying for disease. How often do you have to do that? And
For the trees,
for the trees,
the
in order to maintain them?
well, the other thing, well, we do that twice in the spring and once in the middle of the summer, sometimes twice in the summer. Usually the crop is harvested about the middle to the end of October. The spraying happens, again, about 3 to 4 times a year, depending on the pests that we have to deal with. And the weeds, the spraying the weeds happens twice a year. And then again actually 3 times, because we spray it after we harvest or just before we harvest, so, you know, the ground is...
But if you weren't going to harvest, you wouldn't be doing all that spraying.
Yeah, and I'm not doing it.
Right.
And we're not going to be harvesting.
Right. We're not going to
You're
harvest.
not gonna spray?
I wanted to
But-
also add...
But will the
that-
trees die?
No,
if they're
because
not
Tom
sprayed?
brings up a good point. I mean, when we annexed, and one of the conditions of the tentative map is going to be burying some CCID lines out there, so there's no way to water this. And besides that, CCID notifies you when you do come into the city that within 2 years they're not going to provide you any water. You know, the point is I keep hearing the number $70,000 being thrown around. The number we have is $151,000. If you look at your breakdown, you'll see that that's for clearing putting a sprinkler system in, grading, and putting a sod in,
Improvements.
not
Yeah,
7.
the only thing that would really be cut out, that you could cut out of that if you wanted to, would be the trees that are proposed. That does include trees also.
Right.
Well, it's clearing the site, yeah. We'd have to...
No, I'm saying it includes adding planting
Oh,
trees
and
in the
planting
level
some-
1 too.
some
You
street,
could do
yeah.
without those. That's one area where you could cut back
But I don't
possibly
think
and do it
there's-
at a later date.
But either way,
$60,000.
I mean, I
Not a
think we're
significant, I'm
we're
just
just
saying, yeah.
messing around with high numbers here. Either way, it's significant. What I don't want to see happen, because it appears here as well that, we haven't really found an identifiable funding source as well for this thing. And, and I'll use this as an example just because it's 2 items down here. I don't want to see us getting, we get property and, and we do, and I mean, this is an item later as far as this building that we're going to discuss on the highway here. I just want to make sure that when we get buildings or we acquire things that we have the necessary resources in order for them to be able to be maintained properly. And I just don't want to see it. And we could sit here tonight and say, well, this isn't going to happen and this is going to get taken care of. But, from the time I've been on the council, more often than not, it has happened. And there's things that we've owned that, that have not been maintained as well as we thought they were going to. And, I just don't want to see us go down that road again.
Well, I'd like to ask Cleve, do you have any suggestions for funding?
Well,
any
there
grants
are-
out there or anything? Or?
There are some funds out there. There's monies, the park bond that was recently adopted. Our share of that under the per capita formula is going to be about $60,000, I believe I've calculated. There are also some competitive portions that we can look at there. But I'll have to admit I was kind of reserving those to look at going after some of those for Mariposa Park. And I am not sure that we can use them for both.
Right, okay.
So.
Dave, in your estimate, you mentioned land cost at $40,000 an acre. What was it 5 years ago? Had we done it then? And what do you think it'll be 5 years from now? Or I guess
Well,
it's anybody's guess.
I'm glad you answered that question, asked me that, because the $1,600 per lot park fee, when it was adopted by the city, we went through the whole nexus, and the land base was used at between $40,000 to $45,000 an acre. There were discussions about various levels of park. After the Barrington Park was put in, there was an uproar that it was too small with too much activity. So you have level 1, which is what Cleve is looking for this park, and then level 2, which is more activity, baseball fields, that kind of stuff. I know the city's undertaking fee structure right now, and I kind of expect that park fee to go up. How much? I don't know. I mean, I think the land base right now probably is staying at 40. If you ask me at 5 years from now, will it be at 40? I doubt it. It'll definitely go up. However, if we have the same kind of market forces that we've had in Newman since I've been here, it could stagnate and stay there for 10 years. So that's where the problem comes when you ask the developer, whether it's me or Creekbridge Homes, to go out for 15 years and put a city-wide facility in that I have to fund and look for payment of 15 years with no guarantee that there's going to be dollars out there in that 15-year period. Most of the projects that are approved, we've been involved in most of them, as you well know, are carrying some pretty major improvements for parks and school sites in various areas of this community. Most of that money is going to improve those parks. In the Hartstone Ranch project, for example, the Ranchwood project on the other side. So there's no excess funds. The only place that's going to come from is if some more land is brought in, annexed, and maps are approved. And right now, there's nothing out there. Okay? So all I'm saying, again, I hate to come back and say I told you so, but believe me, we've had this discussion quite a bit. Many an evening I stood in front of you and pleaded to give me the lots on the 3 acres and take the fees because of what we were planning. And no, we needed a park there. I said, well, fine, where are you going to get the money? It won't justify the cost. I mean, we can get the land and the improvements, but you're not going to get the park done unless you divert fees someplace else. So now the question, and I sympathize with the city manager and with you. The community wants parks. They don't want to pay for them. They don't even want to maintain them, let alone how do you get new ones going. So here you are debating on whether you should take funds from the Mariposa Park and divert to this one. I mean, I would make a decision which park you're going to use. Mariposa's been on the books for a while. Go ahead and improve that one. Leave the orchard here, and hopefully in the next couple of years, maybe we can be in here with another project and generate those funds to improve that park.
All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Has Parks and Recs given any feedback on this?
No, because of the timing, they were not able to, and Mr. Tatro requested that we move on it quicker, so they were not able to.
Right. The one thing I would say about this is there's two recommendations in here that Cleve had in his letter dated September 1st. It's in our staff report. And the thing that I would say is due to the fact that, we don't have identified funds, Cleve is looking at, various options that we could maybe look at in the near future. But at this time, it would seem irresponsible on our part to do some of these things without actually knowing how we're going to pay for them. And so I would ask that we consider item 2B, which is if the city cannot identify what source those fees will come from, the recommendation is that the city council allow the Walnut Orchard to remain until such time as improvements can be installed. So that would be the recommendation that I would ask that the council consider.
Well, I agree with you in view that we don't have any funding available whatsoever, that I don't think we have much choice, really.
Right.
And I don't want, we have, like I say, we have the 10 acres sitting out there and we can't do anything with it. We're going to have this, we have Mariposa.
Right.
But these people, and particularly the Creek Canyon area and over there, it's been there quite a while, and they have no parks in that area. And this, it looks like if we leave these orchards, we're talking 5, 6, 7 years maybe down the road.
And what happened on that back, boy, help me on this, Ernie, probably 6 years ago, or 7 actually now, Barrington Park was chosen as a higher priority getting done at the time, and Judy remembers that. And I believe it was something like $350,000 or $400,000 worth of fees, I guess it was, that ended up getting sent over to Barrington Park for completion. And I think the dedication of that was May of 1994. But I think the council took action at some time in late '93, I think it was, that they felt that Barrington Park was a higher priority at the time. So that's what happened to those fees. And
but what I'm
just telling you that's what happened on that.
There was really no park laid out for that Creek Canyon area. And this
and that's what we've been kind of going back and forth with, with Dave for years as far as the location of the site. Initially he had wanted it in more, and then we had.
In Dave's defense, had we gone along with the storm retention type park at this other location, I don't think we would have had this problem now. But I just feel that there should be a part, and I think leaving these walnuts there is just going to be a headache.
And I think this is going to be for future councils to decide. Past councils and present councils have decided the priorities of where the parks are going to be, and time again, new parks such as Mariposa and Barrington and some of these others have come up, and and council has given policy that these are going to be the parks that are developed. And I think what's going to end up ultimately how the park will be developed is if once the council sets policy that says this new additional round of funding that comes up is going to be strictly dedicated to this park here, and that's it. And that's the only way that the funding is going to come through. But past councils have said these are higher priorities. So, and Cleve pointed out that we're going to have a lump sum payment on on that Mariposa Park. These are just priorities that the councils have set. And the only way that, it's going to be different is if the council sets different policy. That's all I can say about that, I guess. Can we have some direct?
Well, I had a question. How long is this piece of property going to sit there? I mean, maybe 20 years from now, is there going to still be walnuts on that?
We hope it's not. We're going to make every...
Is there anything in our future plans as far as this land being developed into a park?
Well, there's a couple of pieces, as Dave pointed out, that are to the southeast of that piece that, would be possible funding sources, and even yet east of that. But, that's one area, but it's just a matter of looking at all of our plans that we have in place and penciling everything out and seeing, okay, what do we have funds available, what funds do we have available for these different parks, and saying, okay, here's what we need to set aside for this. It's just a matter of the council prioritizing the parks that they want to have developed and setting the funds aside for it. That's all it boils down to. And then giving direction to Cleve and our staff to make sure that we come back and identify various funding sources for it. And that's the council's prerogative to set priorities on parks.
Yeah, but haven't we in the past indicated priorities as far as which parks would be...
We have, and that's why Barrington was entirely funded. That's why Mariposa Park was bought, and there's a lump sum payment on that coming up. And we have set policy, and we have set priorities, and that's why we've spent the monies on those particular parks, because we've said that those are the priorities. And until the council says different, then those two, or Barrington's already done, but Mariposa's next in line. Until the council says differently, then that's the way it goes. But I hope that answers your question.
Not really.
Okay.
Well, one thing I'd like to see, and this is what we've done in the past, and trying to answer your question, Bob, is that, and I thought it worked very well, is that the city council from time to time had these Saturday work sessions so that we could plan out what we're talking about here tonight. And I think that we need to get back into that mode because we're losing sight of what we need to be doing for the future of the city, for parks and for alleyways and for street and everything. And I'd like to see that happen, and the public did participate in that, and it was very well attended, and we got a lot of good out of it.
Mm-hmm. Those Saturday morning meetings were very positive.
Oh, yeah.
We'd have them over at the
and
fire
we toured
station.
the city. And
right. Went for a walk of the city. We had it in the fire station. We had people come out. We had each department head come up, give us their goals and objectives for the year. We kind of had questions on what was going to happen, what the priorities were, and it was an opportunity to sit informally and discuss the different things for the city. So I would certainly agree, and if we could have something come back to us to schedule something like that.
Yeah, if we can direct staff to.
Right. And I'll ask again during the... Okay. So, are there any other questions on this? No? Can we have some direction? I recommend that we approve item 2.
Well, in considering the request from David Tatro to dedicate 3 acres park to the city, I move that the Walnut Orchard can remain until such time as the improvements are installed.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Item 10. E, this is to consider a request from the Newman Historical Society to place Old Orostimba Schoolhouse on city property. We have Barbara Powell here tonight.
I'll just make a few statements.
Oh,
I think
sorry.
you have my report here, and I've been working
And
with
everybody, I'm sorry, and everyone else from the historical.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I've been working with Barbara and Tom and Sheldon Crow now for quite some time on this, about 6 months, I guess, when they first approached me on the issue. And as I stated in my report, initially we were looking at, they came to me with the offer to try and relocate the old Orostimba schoolhouse and bring it down to Newman on property, and they wanted to look at using it to store some of the furniture, other items that they have within the historical site, within the museum that they currently can't display because of lack of space to do it, basically. I looked at it and mentioned to them that my main concern was that it seems that we have concerns with maintaining, staffing, and et cetera of the current museum that we have, and that this would put another strain on trying to get all of those things provided in terms of maintenance and keeping the building open, et cetera. So I proposed to them that perhaps there may be another use that it could be brought down into the city, restored as a historical building, and used as a usable building that could provide a needed function within the city. And I proposed to them that perhaps the Newman Co-op Nursery School might be an option that would work there. We brought Janet Perry and Sharon Andrade into the picture to look at that and see if that was an option. We've met with them, and they are open to that and excited that if it works, that it may become a very good option for them. It also potentially opens up the Newman Youth Center for our plans and our goals to open that up as a teen center within Newman to provide a much needed service of providing services to teens within our community. So what I have proposed here tonight is some options and some conditions under which that we could look at doing, providing a location for that. The location that we are proposing would be immediately to the north of the library, or of the library parking lot, actually. And that is a location that I don't believe would interfere with any other uses that currently go on at that park in terms of soccer games, baseball games, etc., and could fit in that area very well. It is a pretty good site by the fact that it's the site of the old Orristimba High School, or was it Newman High School, excuse me, Orristimba, thank you. My history doesn't go back quite as far as theirs does, but anyway, so it fits historically on that site, I think. With that, perhaps, I don't know, maybe I could read through these conditions that I placed here. I will state that I gave a copy of these to Barbara last week after I'd written them. However, we haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to them about them. So if there are some that she'd like to bring up and talk about, then we can do that. But, what I'd basically put is that the cost of moving and restoring the building would be the responsibility of the Historical Society, and that the building shouldn't be moved until the arrangements for the restoration and fundraising of that is necessary is complete. My concern is that we get it down here, set it on there, and we have a building sitting on blocks that maybe doesn't look as good as it said and it should, and et cetera, until later on when we are able to raise funds and provide what is needed to restore it. An agreement should be reached with the nursery school that they would relocate to there, and that it will work for their services. I don't think that's a big problem. We've initially talked to them, and that seems to be acceptable. The Historical Society would be responsible for the general custodial of the building. In that, I think it would be a similar arrangement with what we currently have with the preschool for the youth center. They basically clean it on a daily basis. We come in on occasion and do some major cleaning and major repairs and things like that. So I think it would be a similar arrangement to what we currently have with the nursery school currently. The city will assist with providing playground equipment and fencing around the facility, which would be required if it is used as a preschool. That's required by the state, correct? The city would provide the utilities to the facility, and we would assist with minor repairs and maintenance that are above the general custodial services. So those are the general things that I'd proposed, and I would invite Barbara or whoever from the Historical Society who would like to speak to this.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. I'm very happy to be here tonight. This has been...
I'm sorry, Barbara, even though everybody knows. I'm sorry.
sorry.
I even feel bad having to ask.
Barbara Powell, 2043 Patrick Drive, Newman. And I don't know whether the council knows the history of the building, or if they would like me to give a little background. I do get rather lengthy. so you can just kind of raise your hands and wave me off.
Well, we still have the 3-minute rule, Barbara.
Oh,
so-
okay. I don't know if I
I'm
can
just
do it
kidding
in
with
3
you.
minutes. No, this building originally was built in 1873. It was housed, we know now, on the west side of Orristimba Creek, just over the bridge. We have found a plaque map that shows a picture of the old school. 1895 plaque map was given to the museum with this, so we do know where it was located according to the county records. It housed the students that were settlers, children of the settlers in the Orristimba area. There were quite a few families out there. On Sundays it was also church and held city meetings, community meetings there. In 1915 it was closed by county record. There was only one family left. Between the closure in 1915 and 1916-17, Cole Williams had purchased Section 36, 640 acres, about 5 miles southwest of where the school was. He purchased the school. They took it down, moved it on a wagon with horses up to his property, and he and a Mr. Davenport, a carpenter in Gustine, put the building back together. Now, one person stated that it was taken down in sections. Another said it was piece by piece. The roof has been dropped, so it no longer resembles a school. It resembles a home. You can see where former windows and doors might have been. But as a home, it housed the Cole Williams family of 6. The 19-year-old Edgar Williams, who is still alive and lives in Lindsay, I talked to him today, and he was born in Newman but taken to the residence there up in the hills. And he is delighted to know that we're trying to preserve his home. It is a historical landmark as a school, but also as a home, it also has historical significance. And this is one of the things we'd like to do, is preserve it and bring it back down to Newman. There is also the outhouse there. I don't know what pictures you received in your packet, but in the original photo that we have in the museum, out to the back right-hand side, you can see an outline of this outhouse. It is a 6-holer, 2 doors, 3 holders on each side, one for the boys, one for the girls, and it was moved up to the property as well, and was used for many years, Edgar said. Are there any questions on the building?
When I was a kid, we had a 3-holer.
Well, yes, but this was a 6-holer. We do things larger than the
With 2 Sears catalogs.
Oh, well, you know, there was no catalogs or corn cob in the building.
You can't have an outhouse without a Sears catalog.
That's right. Well, what we'd like to do with the outhouse, we're afraid of vandalism and destruction of it. We do have a place for it behind the museum, fenced in. And we can put several old Sears catalogs that we do have in the museum out there for the...
It says here that there's a lot of legal work that must be done prior to that. Can you expound a little bit upon that?
Okay, I've been working with Shoshone Bianca, who is the project manager of the Mount Hamilton project, since probably February. And they are a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit. We had to send them a lot of our paperwork as far as proving that we were a nonprofit organization. She wanted a letter of intent of what we had planned to do with the building. The last thing on her list, we have complied with everything Nature Conservancy wanted, was a letter from the city of Newman designating or stating that they are in agreement with the Newman Historical Society and they have a place on city property to put the building. They have gone through 3 attorneys since I initially started with Nature Conservancy. This last attorney had not any knowledge of what we were doing. She took the package to him about a month ago, and he seemed to think that all our paperwork was in order for him to proceed, other than the letter from the city of Newman. Now, we don't want to be too hopeful because we're not sure just, what is going to be next. But they gave all indications that the buildings the house and the outhouse would be able to be acquired by the Newman Historical Society.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions for Barbara?
Barbara, would you be looking, I love this old picture. That's a great looking building. I'm wondering if, and it's quite a bit different than
That's
now.
true. Well, like I said, they took the roof down,
Took it
and
down. Would you be looking to restore it to the original architectural detail,
economically it wouldn't be feasible. No.
or is the whole roof?
We do have interior pictures of what it is now, where it was made into a home. And it is ideal for preschool as well as having a meeting room for the Historical Society and other city groups that would need a small meeting space. But as far as putting it back to its original state, I can't see that happening in the near future. We're going to have enough expense as it is. We have not only the foundation, we have plumbing, and we have electrical besides interior. One of the state requirements for a preschool is we must have a small bathroom for the girls, a small bathroom for the boys, and a large bathroom for the adults. And that in itself is going to be very costly. But before it can be utilized by the preschool, these are the things that we must do and we must get the funds for.
We have not had to have a staff bathroom, but if we move, I'm sure the rest of the city will want us to have one. So that's why there's the bathroom.
Barbara, does the building have still have the cupola or steeple on it? Or?
No, I'm afraid not, but we have several carpenters in our midst that we're hoping that we can put that back on. The roof is now metal. It was redwood shingled, is from what Edgar Williams said. So sometime, by the time it was in possession of Simon Newman Company or Wolfson's Company, it was made not to leak by putting on metal, evidently. The roof would probably be a last priority because the building, there was no signs of leakage at all. And it is in very good condition.
One other thing, is your group, I'm sure you've read the letter that Cleve was referring to. Are you in agreement with the provisions?
We're in agreement with the provisions, and we've already started the process within the organization. Pat is holding a Historical Society meeting on Thursday, and we're going to be there to set down the plans that we're going to need and to try to provide what the city manager wants for us. We started collecting funds earmarked for this building in February, and at the present time we have $1,600. We have an account started at San Juan Bank that's going to be earmarked for this building only. We have not done a lot of media publicity because we didn't have the building. We had no knowledge that really we were going to. We were just pursuing it. Now with a letter from the city, if this is going to be your wishes, we can pursue it on a more positive area.
Any other questions, Dave? No. Any questions down on this side? No? Okay, can we have some direction on this item?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara.
I make a motion we approve the request from Newman Historical Society to place Old Oristimba Schoolhouse on city property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Before I move on to item F, I was going to ask if the members of the Historical Society could, or most of them could stay to, I was going to bring up something from items from the council. Barbara and I had talked about the some work that needed to get done behind the museum as far as possible, because we had talked in the past about a pole barn or some type of work back there. But since it's not on the agenda, I wanted to bring it to the council. So I'll bring that under items from the council. That way we could give direction to bring it back for a formal action item. So if you wouldn't mind sticking around for a few minutes, thank you. Item F, this is to review cleanup plan for 1345 N Street and direct staff to proceed. Cleve?
I'm going to ask Ernie will handle this item for us.
Hold on. Mr. Silva? Alvin? Did you guys have the item on the for the speed limit signs on Hoyer? Were you going to stick around for that? Because that's... Oh, I'm sorry. That's why I thought you were here. Sorry about that. I just wanted to let you know that those were on next for speed limit signs on Hoyer. I thought that's why they were... Just wanted to...
Okay.
Oh, oh, okay. I thought that's why he was there. All right. Sorry about that. You got it upside down or something. You got to turn the paper over.
There, that's better.
Ernie, you got to turn the paper over. Oh, just turn it over.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
No.
Upside down.
Now it's upside down.
There you go.
Oh.
One way or another.
Okay, as per your direction, we came back with a report on the property that we had purchased from Damari Brothers. So you can see that's Highway 33, and of course the alley is here. The property has 4 buildings presently located on it. Here on the northeast corner is a building that's about 50 feet by 50 feet. And it is presently being used by Ace Hardware for storage of concrete, fertilizer, compost. It's completely filled with pallets. This building here, I believe, is about a 20 by 60 building, and it's presently being used to store some of the old doors that we had here in the fire bay. We have some of the theater seats in there. And we've also got those, what do you call those, Dave? Those boxes?
Yeah, platforms.
Yeah, the platforms that they use at the theater. The biggest building is over here on this corner, and it's empty. There isn't much in it. It's mostly wood frame and sheet metal. And this building here in this corner is about a 30 by 50 foot building, and it used to be a detail shop. It's got a concrete floor, it's got bathroom sink, it's got water and floor drain, and it's presently being used to store some of our vehicles in here. What we're proposing, staff recommendation is that this huge building be demolished, be removed. The fencing along the alleyway here also be removed, and also the fencing up here along at the highway, and then just open this up for future parking. This needs quite a bit of cleanup. There's dirt piles in there. There's some old broken concrete. There's some grass. But if we cleaned up this area here and we pretty much maybe spruced up these buildings here by painting them or something for the time being until the Plaza project becomes a reality, that would be staff recommendation. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Ernie? Dave?
No questions, no.
Okay.
I just wonder, when we clear the property to keep weeds down, are you planning on maybe putting some gravel or something in to at least, keep you could probably park there like we had over here across the street for a while. We didn't have it paved. Was that the plan, or?
That's what I discussed with Ernie, was that we could do something similar to that to provide some, grade it out good and put down some road base. If you look in the report from the engineering department, they list to install 4 inches of AB would be $1,600. We could do that and compact it good so that it would provide a surface for mostly what I see is probably overflow parking from the theater during big events there. So.
Okay. I thought this was the way to go until I went over and took a closer look at those buildings. The northeast building, that one, yeah. It needs a new front overhead door or some major work done on the front end of it to make it look halfway decent. There's up in the right rear corner, there's dry rot. There's a hole all the way through the top of the building up at roof level. The sliding rear door doesn't work. Your covered area, this is a light area between the two buildings. One of the trusses, there. The
Right.
outside truss is broken and sagging down. The whole thing's going to fall down. The northwest building has a fire damaged section in the back,
Yeah.
which has holes in the roof, in the walls, and that part of it should be taken down, which can necessitate some work on the back wall, new door and windows. And your southwest building over there, there's 3 overhead doors that have to be replaced.
southwest.
No, the
Southwest,
southwest,
the other one.
that one, yeah.
The bay doors,
and
yes.
And it's just, I think we'd have to put too much money in to make them look halfway decent. And the idea of the whole thing was to open up the whole area so that you could see all the way over to Main Street. And by taking just that building down, it's not going to happen.
Well, you also mentioned when we were over there that in that southeast building, if you take that down, it's part of the wall for that other building.
Right.
You have to
and so
put a
you
wall,
have to have
you
a
have
new
to build a
front
wall.
In fact, I think you mentioned there, Ernie, something about
There's an interior wall in here that I wasn't aware of. So even though it shows here sharing a common wall, when they put in this detailed shop, there's a wall, another wall that was installed here about, well, maybe a foot to the inside of that one.
because you had on your list here, furnish and install exterior wall.
Right. So that would be one less expense because you can remove this. There's an inner wall in here.
But even the the northwest building, which is probably in better shape than any of them, there's still, where the panels were kicked out at the bottom, there's holes in the wall. And if you're going to use them for storage, you're going to have to be secure. And as soon as we take that fence down, it's not going to be. So I just would be in favor of taking them all down.
Yes, the buildings are in bad shape. The only reason that I was going with the recommendation to hang on to them for a little bit is because we don't have any storage space whatsoever, since the police department pretty much took over this bay in here. We ended up really having to scramble and look around to see where we could store all these.
And I know the hardware store is.
Well, the Prino seems to be a storage shed these days, doesn't it? I'm just kidding.
But yes, David is right. They are in really sorry shape. It would take quite some doing to improve these buildings. This building here has concrete block wall on the south and north side. The rest is wood frame with sheet metal. Has a wood roof, concrete floor, but they are in real bad shape. I just thought that perhaps
So you guys on the southwest piece, you guys have some stuff in there, right? Vehicles and things like that, right? You guys have some things in there.
Yes, we've got 3. We have a police vehicle in here, and we've also have
that blue one.
no, it's a white one. It used to belong to an ex-sergeant or somebody. But anyway, we also have a couple of public works vehicles in there also. Okay. So, but the bay doors, yes, you're right. They're in sorry shape.
And these other ones,
would take quite
on the
some
north
doing.
ones, I know Ace has that one over there. Do they have? I went in there one time. Do they have the entire thing still used for storage?
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, it's completely filled up with a lot of pallets in there. They've got tons of stuff in here. This connection between 2 buildings, as Dave pointed out, it is sagging. It would need to be braced somehow in the center because it's only anchored off of the brick wall up the Moose Lodge building.
How much is Ace paying us?
I don't know right now.
Not much.
I forget what the amount is, that we agreed to the same arrangement they had with Damari prior to.
I hate
So,
to see that
in the
happen because they
interim.
do need the storage.
Now,
It's
the
just-
consensus I'm getting,
If we take the one building down, you don't see that ugly building, but then you see the other ugly buildings that you can't see because that ugly building's up there.
Why don't we kick all
And
the...
just for the record, we could say they're ugly buildings because
No,
there are buildings.
well,
They are.
Ernie, the consensus I'm getting from the community is that we use redevelopment money because we got the redevelopment to take care of blight. Well, the city bought the blight, and now we own the blight. And people are saying, why do we want to keep the blight?
Right. Here's a recommendation then. It sounds to me, we've got these items in these various buildings. Can we've got this thing here of tearing down the southeast building there, the one that's the worst one of all aesthetically. can we, between now and the next meeting, work with Ace Hardware, work with the theater group, and then, you guys figure something out on your stuff, and figure something out on storage, and then I agree. I mean, there's no point in putting in all this money and securing this and doing this and that and everything else. And those buildings are in pretty crummy shape. And Tom said, we bought those things because of blight to be part of a redevelopment project. I just think that we just need to find some alternatives for those spaces in there immediately. Let's take care of that one, that southeast one, and then let's find some alternatives for these folks that are in these other ones, and let's just knock them all down. And then, in fact, if we could find an alternative between now and the next meeting, I'm not opposed to the ugliest building staying up 2 more weeks. I'm not opposed to it if we could knock them all down and save on costs on demolition and all of them at the same time. Because if we do that one, then we have to bring somebody else out to do that. If we're going to do them all, let's just knock them all down at once. That way we pay once and that's it. But in the meantime, between now and the next meeting, let's find some alternatives for the others.
The feed and seed's sitting there vacant. Maybe something could be arranged out there, or I don't know if there's any room at the corporation yard.
I think someone else has purchased that.
Oh, good.
Okay.
That's even better.
Anyway, but you guys know where the pieces are at in town.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could do something.
Can
Ernie,
we look
do
at the
you have any
cost?
cost as far as what it would cost to knock those buildings down?
No, I don't. The only estimate that we got was that to remove this building and the fences and then redo that section of the
Right,
parking lot.
we have the
but,
27,500 here.
I would imagine that you would just almost triple it and say, yeah, remove them all. That's the only other alternative, is just to do away with those
Knock 'em all
buildings, I
We
mean,
might as well-
I don't see any sense in having to go back and study it. Either we keep them or we don't.
Right.
And again, the only thing that we had in mind was, hang on for the storage for the winter or something. But no, I agree. If it wouldn't hurt my feelings none if you wanted them all gone.
But for the sake of the other two, the theater group and ACE, can we just have something back to us at the next meeting, have an alternative already set up, and a game plan of knocking them all down? Can we do that? You comfortable with that, Dave?
Yeah, I'd like to look into, do we have any property we could put up a decent metal building on somewhere that we could use for the storage for the city vehicles and all this stuff that you have in there? Wouldn't be a very large building, but
no property that really comes to mind other than that property there next to the PG&E yard on the, or maybe at
Maybe we could lease the PG. They had lots of room.
I was thinking about the property that we had purchased over by the over on M Street. Where the corporation yard is.
Yeah.
But we were going to get rid of that, weren't we? And
There was
move
some
somewhere
talk
else.
of,
So that's-
moving out
okay.
by Canal School or something.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you guys just, and we could all, within now and the next 2 weeks, I'm sure we're going to drive around and take a look, and then these guys are all going to take a look and see what would work for all these things here. And then why don't we just schedule this thing for 2 weeks, have an alternative site for these things to go to, and then just have an alternative and have a game plan to knock everything down.
Mhm. And an idea what the cost would be.
Okay.
And
Let's try and keep Ace Hardware in the loop here. So that
Right,
they know
absolutely,
what's
absolutely.
going on.
And let's just keep we'll keep Dave, I'm sure we'll keep Dave and the theater group informed, and then we most definitely need to keep Ace in the loop as well.
We've got some stuff that's stored in there that I don't even know why we're storing this stuff. Those seats and that kind of stuff. Why don't we can't expand this room anymore because the police took it over. And so we have all those seats sitting there for what?
Well, there's some things used for performances too. don't
Well,
there?
yeah, there's some old.
No, these are,
Old theater
yeah, you need to go in there. These are something that will never be used.
Yeah, some of the extra seats like these that came from Lodi.
Well, there's some of them,
There's some
they're old
ones in
wooden
there
ones.
too. Old
Yeah,
ones.
there's some old wooden
Right.
ones also from the old courthouse.
All right, so we'll have them on our next regularly scheduled meeting of the 26th. We'll have,
They might-
Ernie, you'll have some, on the meeting of the 26th of this month, we'll have something back to us with a game plan for all of it.
As far as looking for a location for a new
As far as
building?
having a location found, and then No, we don't want to look, we want one found already by the time you come back. And then just as far as time frame on knocking everything down.
I hope it's not as
Cost
tough
and
as finding the skate park. So.
But we did find it.
We found it. All right, Ernie? So the
Very good.
26th, you'll have something for us? Great. So we've basically directed the staff how we're going to bring this back on the 26th. Okay. Thanks, Ernie. Thank you, Cleve. Item 10G, this is to authorize the installation of speed limit signs on Hoyer Road. Cleve, did you want to get that one? Or
Ed,
Ernie?
were you gonna do this?
Or Ed, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Since the police department's being bashed on, I invite everybody to take a look what we've done inside the old fire bay.
The comments weren't meant to be detrimental.
I know that. The item before you is a result of a lot of complaints that have been received on Hoyer Road, mostly to incoming traffic into the new residential area. And Hoyer Road is about the only street that we have coming into the city is not posted with a reduction of speed, such as Hills Ferry Road and different areas coming into town. You come from a 55 mile an hour speed zone directly into a 25. So what we're proposing is we post, let me turn them off, that we post a 25 mile an hour speed zone ahead sign, excuse the ring, and then a 25 mile an hour speed zone beyond that, and that we post one opposite going out of town in a westerly direction also, as well as coming into town east. So a sign, 25 mile an hour speed zone ahead, 0.2 of a mile west of town, and then a 25 mile an hour speed sign
East.
as you're coming into town, and then we'd also like 25 mile an hour speed sign going out of town as well.
How about a end of 25 mile an hour zone out opposite where you're 25 ahead?
We could do that as well.
Give people a break.
That would be
Let them know
helpful.
where they can go.
Right.
Yes, but currently we're working traffic pretty heavy out in that area and writing quite a few citations, and still hasn't slowed people down, and we're still getting a lot of complaints from residents in that neighborhood. So the recommendation is that we post the signs. We spoke with Ernie about the cost of putting the signs up, and that's in your notes, and we're asking approval.
Okay. Are there any questions for Ed?
I just wondered, in general, does it help also to have it painted on the street, slow to 25, or do they also notice?
Usually they're going too fast to see that.
Yeah, I come into town all the time on Hills Ferry, and if I slow down to 35, you look up in your rearview mirror and
There's usually a police officer
you better
there.
go like this, because you're going to get, people just don't see the sign. I'm thinking, well, maybe this is another visual
Well,
that would.
we could post a sign, and we could also do what we did on Hills Ferry Road. We put the bumps on there, kind of an alert. They better start looking, because if we go from 55, 35, then 25.
Oh, the bump up, the sign.
And out here, we go strictly from a 55 to a 25. So if council desires to do that, we could try to do some additional warnings of some sort. But it's an issue that needs to be addressed.
All right. Any other questions for Ed on this? Anything? Can we have some direction? Do we want to? We have the request here for these signs, the $300 for the $300 for the signs and the poles. Did we also want to look at as well what Sheila was saying as far as some of these little the bumps going out there, like we've got going out to Hills Ferry? Is that something else we want to consider in addition to this?
What's the police think?
You were talking about just painting on the road the
painting, yeah.
speed
Oh,
limit.
okay.
Painting
Not
the
the-
25
not
mile an
the
hour
dot.
speed
Going
zone
out
ahead.
of town.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just thinking the ones going out right here on Merced, going out to Hills Ferry when
Yeah.
you're going out.
But I think what Ed was saying, I don't think painting is going to do that much.
Right.
But do you think the speed bumps
These
would?
little bumps.
I think they're not necessarily speed
Well, I
bumps.
know they're
They're,
not.
they're,
They're
they're alert
yeah,
buttons,
Right.
and along with the buttons as well as the sign, I think that will get the attention of the driver, and hopefully when they hit those little buttons, they're going to look up.
He feels more effective.
Right.
Okay, so I think
What is, that's not proposed here though, don't believe.
That
What
is
is the
not
cost of
proposed, that's
installing those, the dots, Ernie? That, there's a little bit more cost involved there or not?
Okay. Is that something we could live with, 40 cents a button? Okay.
How many buttons?
Give you 2 buttons.
I don't know how many buttons we have out on Hills Ferry Road.
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay, so if we can we go ahead and add that to this, these buttons as well, to look at putting those in as well? All right, can we have some direction on this item?
I make a motion, we authorize the installation of speed limit signs on Hoyer Road, with the amendment to also install the buttons on the street level.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, Ed. Item number 10, H. This is an informational report on the Rotary entry sign project. And is our president of Rotary here today?
Our president of Rotary is actually in Europe somewhere right now. He's on vacation, and so I told him, write the report and I will give it. Basically, the Rotary went out and they were kind of unpleasantly, I guess, surprised at the cost of putting these signs up. It wasn't near what they expected or what they had budgeted. And so what they've requested is that they want to go back and look at some other options. There are some other options in how they might be able to construct those, and also possibly some other funding ways to, some fundraising, et cetera, in ways that they might be able to still do those signs and put them up. So they've just asked to allow them to look at some other ways that they can do that and bring back a report at a later date. So.
Okay. Are there any questions for Cleve? No? Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you for your report. I know we've been through this sign here, and I guess we'll hear back, like you said, when this comes back. All right? Item number 10I, this is approval of warrant 19351 to PG&E. Any questions on that?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0 with 1 non-participating. Item number 11, items from the city manager. Cleve?
2 things. First thing, I apologize to the council. You had also requested a report back on the timeline on the skateboard park. I don't have any excuses other than the plate has been a little bit full and I have not been able to get all the information. I've been trying to contact consultants who would do some specifications on that, and have been unsuccessful in reaching someone who is I'm comfortable with at this point. I have reached one person and they're getting some information for me, but to date I haven't been able to reach a person that I think is somebody that we would want to use to do this. So we'll continue to look at that and continue to work on that project.
Okay.
The other item, just quickly, I did have a meeting with the Attorney General's office, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Air District concerning Tatarik today. Ernie Garza, your Public Works Director, and Lance Perry also met with me on that, and we will bring back a written report on what that is. Basically, it's another statement going out, I guess, to Tatarik as far as what they need to do and take care of some problems. It's my understanding that, in fact, they stated that the Attorney General's office and the Air Board are going to issue an order that the atomizers need to be shut down because they're not achieving the results they expected, and they are causing odor problems as well as other problems. So I expect to see that coming out any day now that those are to be shut down. I will bring back a written report as far as some of the other details as soon as I get that from the Attorney General's office and the Regional Board as far as how we're going to proceed with it from here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cleve. Councilmember Martina, anything tonight?
Just to mention, you know, we're so blessed in this town to have people that volunteer, and especially tonight with the Historical Society coming forward and with their new endeavor, and I think it's wonderful that these kind of things happen in a small community like Newman. We shouldn't take it lightly because these people give a lot of their time and energy, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
Anything else, Bob?
That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Applegate, anything
Just
tonight?
15 items.
Yeah.
The first item I have is that I talked to Cleve before and was hoping to be on the agenda tonight. However, it got misplaced, so I'd like to bring it up. And we're talking about this fiber optic cable and conduit. Now, as you heard the lady from SCEDCO talk, that, you know, if you're not in place with this stuff, you're going to be left out in the future. I went at the League of Cities conference Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I went to a session on the same thing. They say if you don't have that in place, you're going to be in last place. So what I'd like to do is direct staff to look into and maybe go back to the Planning Commission. I talked about Borchard, and he says that he's just right now completing his new building codes. And one of the things we talked about is that have a recommendation that a requirement that the builders either lay the fiber optic cable or at least have the conduit put in place so that when it does come to us, we don't have to tear up the streets again and have a lot of extra cost. All we have to do is pull it through the conduits. So I'd like to see a consensus of the council to have staff look into this.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea. I think we need to be ready for that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Tom, something else?
Yes. Every place I went today, I got attacked. Well, not really attacked, but what are you going to do about yellow and red? I mean, I got bombarded. And so, again, I'd like to, a consensus to have staff look into to see what we can do in the future and what we can do in the case that we have right here. So if I could have a consensus of that, I'd appreciate it. I know it's hard to say the right way to say it, right, Sheila? So anyhow, that's my second thing.
Okay. Absolutely. I think we all know what we're talking about here. And
Well, we're spending $2 million to fix up the streets and the sidewalks and make it a beautiful place downtown. And then
we just want to make sure that everything blends well.
blends in together.
Right. So is that something that we can bring back? Sure. Okay. Anything else, Tom?
No, just the third thing I want to bring up again, that direct staff to look into this Saturday work session.
Mm-hmm.
I really think it's that important, and when we had it before, we just got so much good out of it. So that's all I have.
Is that something we could agree on? I had actually
Well-
written that down as well, as far as
My only question, we can set one up whenever. My first question would be, is there a specific topic that you would like to schedule for the first one? Because I don't want to just have it a general session open up. We need to have a specific topic. And I know there are some that have been mentioned, but, you know, if you want us to bring you back with some suggestions, or if you want to suggest items, we can.
Well, one of the items I think is the parks.
Right.
Park funding.
That would probably be
Right.
a good starting
That'd
point.
be a good start.
It would be park funding and available grants and what our priorities are for parks in the
Right.
future.
That should probably be done in conjunction with the Recreation
Right.
Commission then, is that
Right.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have those two bond issues that are coming up, and we need that's going to be coming up real quick to apply for those funds. The other one is the library fund.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that would be the other one I would suggest that we take into consideration, because that's coming up pretty quick.
Sure.
So, okay.
Anything else?
That's
Tom?
it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Radford, anything?
Well, I just got to thinking, you know, with winter coming on and you know, one of the things we did, I think it was 2 years ago now, we had an emergency planning session. And it was a full day. We brought in all the emergency agencies and did a drill to see how prepared we were. Is that something that maybe we ought to look at doing again, or do we have all of our plans in place, and does everyone... I know one of the big issues we had was telephones when we had the flood. You know, plan as we might, we didn't have the communication in place, and I'm just wondering if we should consider an emergency drill again to make sure we're prepared for what might happen.
We can do that. I know that we can work with the county and they'll cooperate to set up a drill for us if we want to do that. I think, you know, perhaps it may be a good time. I know the last couple of years, part of the response I got when this was broached was, well, we just went through a live situation. We didn't need the drill.
Yeah, we did.
The
We weren't
previous
prepared.
years.
Yeah.
And I think there have been a lot of changes made since that on a staff level and facilities, et cetera, our phone system and some of those things that will much better accommodate those situations now. But it may be a good idea to whole thing. We can look into it if you'd like and see what we want to do.
Thank you.
Anything else, Sheila?
That's all I had, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reed, anything tonight?
No, nothing tonight.
All right. And I just have one item that Wyatt asked the Historical Society to stay. Barbara Powell and I had talked a few weeks ago, I think it was, and as we're all aware that we had this pole sign here, some information brought back to us from our previous engineer, and things just sort of dropped. And we had talked about what are some possibilities that we could do back behind the museum. One of the things that came up, maybe some type of asphalt or just something to just get the ball rolling on some of that equipment that's back there. Each year that goes by with the rains, it just keeps deteriorating more and more and more. And I just would like to see us bring something back to where we get the ball rolling on that. And, you know, that may be just something like some asphalt or something. In fact, if you wouldn't mind, Barbara, would you mind coming up real quick and just kind of, or did you know? Okay. Can you add something to that, Tom, just briefly? Okay.
Tom Powell, 2043 Patrick Avenue, Patrick Drive, Historical Society. The only thing I can bring light to that is that we have to have just about everything in place of what we're going to be doing to the backyard, because the moving of that equipment is not going to be easy. And we're talking 2 moves. We've got to move it out and then we've got to move it back. The big diesel engine, we have promised to us and donated to us the cement and the concrete and everything to put it in place. We have to raise it up, make a big thing for it, but we've been holding off on it because, as you mentioned, there was a pole barn in the works. There were different things, and it's just kind of, we just put everything on a hold as far as the backyard is concerned. There's the pole, I'm sure is expensive to do, and then trying to work on the equipment is something that takes a lot of manpower and a lot of people to do it. There's an organization in Stevenson that's willing to, they're a old engine club, and they have the expertise and that would be willing to help us put that diesel engine back and get it running. But we can't do it until we build a platform for it so it's in stationary, because you can't let it run on the ground. But and a lot of the equipment is in that kind of a position now. Everything can be moved, but it's going to be one of those things that you're going to have to do it with a lot of love and care, and make sure we have a place to store it for the time that it's going to be out of there, and then have a way to bring it back. I don't know if there's any location where we could put it now, you know, to have that done, or if you have the final decisions as to what you can do for us back there. And that's, I mean, we're just kind of sitting in limbo waiting to see what happens.
Right. And that's why I wanted to bring it back, just because I know we talked about this thing years ago, and it just dropped. And, you know, I would just hate to see us 10 years down the road, this equipment continuing to get in worse and worse shape, and you know, just hasn't gotten any better since the last time we talked about it. But I'd like to bring it back to the council, see if this is something that we could agendize at our next regularly scheduled meeting, and see what the options are that we can do as far as, you know, possibly, you know, asphalting back there, or doing something to get that, you know, maybe some type of cover of some sort, just to get that area back there in better looking shape than it is
One of the
now.
things to remember, and I hate to even bring it up, is that we're still not handicap accessible.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's kind of a expensive and sore subject, but it's one of the things that we have to look at all the time. Every time I see somebody go by in a wheelchair, I just think, oh Lord. You know?
Well, I mean, we have to, that's something we do have to address, though.
It's something that should be brought into it. This is one of the things we thought was going to be solved with the pole barn, because there was facilities for that incorporated into it, which would have worked out fine.
Right.
But it just never did come to pass.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Tom, would it be necessary to actually have asphalt back there? I mean, if we had the pole barn, then a good gravel base, and then you could put your concrete base for your engine on that. Would it be necessary to, because as long as that equipment is heavy, and unless you put a real thick asphalt base down, you're going to,
Well,
it's going to sag.
asphalt in itself creates heat, or it holds
Yeah.
heat,
Yeah.
and that isn't necessarily good. If there was a pole barn or some kind of a roofing system over it, some way to where we could have it protected.
But the
from
gravel base then
from
would,
the sun,
would
and
be
then a
fine.
good crushed back
Yeah.
gravel in there
Right.
would probably be just as good. Because basically all you want to do is cut the weeds down and keep it so that it's clean and walkable.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, can we bring this back? Is there agreement that we could bring this back at the next meeting? And let's at least get the ball rolling on something to improve that area back there.
And I think we need to also consider the handicap accessibility while we're doing it. It's just something that
That's
needs
going to be
to,
difficult because you got that high rise.
Well,
Wait,
the way there's drawings made up with that in mind. And I don't know if Cleve has them or not anymore. We still have a set of prints over at the.
We probably have them at City Hall.
There's
somewhere.
probably
Is this
someplace
access
over there.
from the rear or from the front?
Well, the way it was going to be done was the elevator was going to put in the rear, and we would change the main entrance to the back section. When you walk up the stairways to get into it, where you walk right behind where the desk is, there's a big window there. Going to make a doorway there, which would actually be the elevator access in and out. And then the elevator would have to be recessed in the bottom because we're subfloor in the basement, and you'd have to have both of them. But it'd be kind of a three-step elevator. One would be below ground for the bottom floor, and then one would be ground level, and then one would be upstairs. But it was all considered into that. And then if the pole barn or whatever was put up high enough, then they could make it almost a two-story barn and have storage in the attic portion of that for different things.
Okay. Well, why don't we, because I suspect that we're going to go through all these things when we have it actually formally agendized. Why don't we go ahead and bring it back at the next meeting and get all the relevant information that we need that I suspect that we still have at City Hall and some of these other things. And then we could schedule it, and then we'll let you folks know when it'll be on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Would it be possible that I could request that this be done at the first meeting in October rather than the next meeting? I'm scheduled to be out of town next week, and it may cut
We're
some
going to
things
be out
short.
of town in October.
Sorry.
We'll let you know what happens.
Yeah.
We'll keep you informed.
you have email, right?
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll bring that back then at the first meeting in October and proceed with that. I have nothing else tonight, so at this time I'll ask for a
I move
motion.
that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.